So, will the international community manage to come to an agreement to fight plastic pollution? That question is on everybody's minds as representatives from across the globe meet in the South Korean city of Busan. The challenge ahead is significant. Plastics represent a threat to the environment, to biodiversity and also human health. And I'm joined in the studio by our science editor, Julia Seeger, who's been following these talks. Countries are divided on this issue, Julia, and those deep differences have really dogged 4 previous rounds of talks in the last 2 years. So are they going to be able to reach an agreement this time around?
Well, it's a good question, but countries are indeed still very much divided. On one hand, you have countries, including France, that want a final legally binding text with a very clear and strict wording on the reduction of the production of plastic worldwide. And on the other, you have many countries, mainly oil-producing countries, who want, of course, the opposite, less restrictive objectives to be able to continue producing plastic. And the reason why is because they see plastic as an economic opportunity going ahead, especially at a time when fossil fuels and thermal engines are losing ground to electrification. As you know, 90% of plastic is actually a derivative of oil and gas. So they see it as an economic opportunity. And their argument is going to be to say that, well, we don't need to reduce the production, but we need to focus a little bit more on collecting and recycling. Now, the issue is that when you actually look at this so-called principle of the 3 R's, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle, the problem with the reuse and recycling and this idea that we could create a circular economy with plastic is that more and more it looks like it's a pipe dream. For one, because of the amount of plastic that we're talking about. For two, because most of the plastic is not recyclable. You only have 2 categories of plastics that you can recycle. So 90% of plastic waste is never recycled. And here are the 2 families that you can actually recycle. The other problem is that the process of recycling plastic is actually harmful for the environment because it creates these microplastic particles that then go in the environment, in our water, our rivers, and our fields, and then, of course, in our plates. And we found some of those particles in the human brain, the human heart, even in the maternal milk. So it's absolutely everywhere. Now, the other problem is that you can't use recyclable plastic for everything. You can't use it, for instance, to contain food because of risks of toxicity. And the last issue is that there's no economic incentive because recycled plastic is actually much more expensive than new plastic. So that's why it's going to be quite an issue, and that's why a lot of countries are now pushing for a reduction of the production specifically.
The production of plastic continues to increase. We produce, I understand, somewhere around 460 million tonnes of plastic each year in the world, twice as much as it was 20 years ago.
That's right, and if we project ourselves to 2060, it could actually triple. Now, plastic is everywhere in clothing, in beauty products, of course, also in packaging. We see it everywhere. And you may ask, well, why haven't we ever found an alternative to plastic? And the answer is that we have alternatives. We have glass, cellulose, cardboard, but every time it seems like it only serves one purpose. It's actually hard to find a material that imitates completely plastic because plastic is resistant, it's flexible, it's cheap, it can be used by all types of industry, all usage. It's also and I think that's the most important point, it offers a high level of food safety. And so that's also why we haven't used anything else. But once again, there are lots of other alternatives. Maybe we can take a look at them. But there are always, advantages and disadvantages for each one. It's not a fit-all solution. Now, maybe the only one that really gets close to what we have today is a more durable plastic called VPR. It's based on Vitromer epoxy resin, and it was developed by the University of Tokyo, and it's both resistant, it's malleable, it's recyclable. And what's really interesting is that it's actually partly biodegradable, especially when it's been exposed to seawater. So it biodegrades by itself. And what is actually left, the fragments that are left are not toxic and can be used as food for the fish. So what's really interesting, and here you can see this new type of plastic. When you warm it up, you can actually reform it. It's very malleable once again. And what's interesting is that I think this is going to be the most important point, that scientists are going to have to find a real alternative to plastic to be able to get out of this situation. And it seems like this VPR plastic actually is more environmentally friendly on all stages of its life cycle.
Julia, thank you so much. Truly fascinating.